Okay, hello everybody. My name is Amir Netz. I'm the CTO of Microsoft Fabric, Technical Fellow at Microsoft, and this is our Fabric session. How many of you have been to the innovation session by Arun? Oh, just a few, great. Those who have been, I know there will be some repetitive content, but we're really trying to make sure that there's a lot of new content in this session as well. So we're going to start. Those of you who haven't heard about Microsoft Fabric, it's the unified data platform for the age of AI. It's everything that you need in order to run data. Every kind of data service that you have in mind, you can think of it as the office for data. It has a data factory, we deal with data integration, ETL. It has analytics, which is data warehouse, data engineering, data science. We have the real-time intelligence that deal with everything has to do with streaming data from devices, from IoT, from cloud services, from anything that you have the data that you need to handle in real time, ingest it. You have Power BI how many of you are using Power BI? Yeah, everybody. Yeah, I know everybody's using Power BI. And then today we're going to talk about two additional really, really important workloads, databases and IQ. And I know everybody is very curious about those. We launched Fabric. It's all based on one product, all based on the same foundation of AI, same foundation of governance, and OneLake, which we're going to spend a lot of time on. We launched 2 years ago, Fabric. It's the youngest product in the market, but the momentum has been incredible. 28,000 customers are already using Fabric. And I'm not counting the Power BI customers. We have 400,000 of those. These are the people who are using things that are not Power BI. It is actually the fastest growing data product in the history of Microsoft. It's quite phenomenal. We have built an incredible ecosystem around Fabric, lots and lots of partners, including a lot of software developer companies that are been launching a lot of products that are integrating in Fabric, built on top of Fabric, and built into Fabric. And one of our best partners that I'd like to feature today is Esri. You heard about Esri. They rule the world of geographical information systems. They built their best product, Esri ArcGIS, into Fabric. I'd like to welcome Sean McGinnis to actually show us, from Esri, to show us what it means to actually build Esri into Fabric. Hey, Sean.
Hey, Amir, how are you? Thank you so much for having us today.
So we have here, ArcGIS Maps for Fabric. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, so ArcGIS Maps for Fabric is a new workload that's going to be rolling out to allow organizations to seamlessly access and visualize your spatial data coming directly out of the OneLake. It's allowing you to perform complex operations to include the spatial context, combining map layers with business data and speed up the decision-making process.
Now, you actually have two parts. We have the analytics engine of the GIS that is built into the world of the notebooks and Spark, and you also have the visualization layer, right?
That's correct.
And you can actually show us both.
Yep, we'll walk through.
Okay, so let's start with the analytics engine.
Yeah, so the analytics engine starts by working with any of the data that's accessible within Fabric. So whether it's in OneLake, anything that it can read or write, as well as ArcGIS. And then the next step is to add the spatial context of that data. This is what's going to allow us to do that advanced spatial analysis.
Now, you're working here in Python. You're enriching the data with all these geographical attributes?
That's correct, yeah. We're adding information, socio-economic, business, lifestyle, demographic information to extend the value of your data by including that spatial context.
And you can even visualize the data in the notebook.
That's correct. As we're going through and doing these analysis, we can start to understand, how far is a customer from a store? What is their spend looking like? Or, here we're actually visualizing that trend. And then from here, we can move it into other aspects. So instead of looking at that raw data, starting to generalize that information to be included in Power BI or inside of the Maps for Fabric workload.
And this is fantastic for anybody who can code in Python, feel comfortable with Spark. Yeah. You get all this, you're basically a data engineer, kind of more professional developer. And it's just amazing the kind of visualization you have here. But if you're more of a business user and you really want to understand the data without having to write any code, then you have the maps of ArcGIS in Fabric.
Yeah, so the Maps for ArcGIS for Fabric lets you pick up that data and quickly start to visualize based on that spatial context.
And this is basically just a new item in Fabric.
That's correct. It's a workload that operates like any other workload. It starts by creating a map that gets saved in the OneLake. And then you navigate through your lake houses to find the spatial data and drop it on a map really quickly. And then from there, we identify those spatial elements of it. Now, as it's dropped on a map, we can start to visualize and analyze that information. So here we're pulling up what were the sales from last year. And it quickly starts to tell a story. The dots are scaled based on the amount of sale that occurred that previous year. And all of the visualization is controlled with sliders. So you don't have to go in and enter numbers. You can work with that data to make the visualization that you want.
So no coding required, completely drag and drop. Beautiful. Now you have also the Atlas, right?
That's correct, yeah. The ArcGIS Living Atlas is a repository of authoritative spatial information. So here, as I'm looking at the sales data, I might want to understand how is sales related to median household income. But when we look at this is kind of noisy, right? We can't really see the story. But because we did that enrichment, we can now start to visualize information from directly within that spatial data set. So here we're looking at sales in comparison to median household income. So now we're seeing these two variables in one dot. And then we get to control the map to really help us tell that story. So now we've changed the base map. There's a full portfolio of base maps. And then you can do the visual analysis that's now showing the colors based on the median household income above or below, but still scaling that information based on the spend. And all of that information is tied to that feature on the map.
And once we have this map, where can I use it?
Right, you can use it anywhere. As long as the person is authorized to access it, it's saved within OneLake. So after you go through and make your beautiful map, it gets saved back as an item inside of OneLake, so then you can share it out, and then the next person can come in, open up the map, and they see the information that you created spatially.
And look, it's just beautiful, beautiful, the visualization. That's fantastic. Thank you so much, Sean.
Yeah, thank you very much. And if you would like to learn more, there's a theater session this Friday morning where Madhu and I will be going through and diving in even deeper.
Okay, that's even better. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay, so we have we have here Fabric. Fabric, we like, when you describe all the features we have in Fabric, we like to talk about Fabric as 3 pillars. The first one is we provide the complete data platform, everything that you need in order to run your data operations. The second one is how you bring all the data to one place, unifying them in the lake. And the third one is how you deliver the business value for your users. And we're just going to go pillar by pillar and talk about what is new this Ignite. We'll start with the unified data platform, and this is really about everything that you need for data, the office for data, that's how I like to call it. And one of the biggest news here is that we have now arrived at the final stage of the databases in Fabric. You know, Fabric started, everybody thought it's going to be about analytics, but Fabric is much more than analytics. Fabric allows you to build any kind of application you can imagine. Analytics, BI, real-time, operational, translytical, the combination of transactional application and analytical, all of that, and really adding the databases into Fabric allow us to really complete that portfolio. And we are really excited to announce that the SQL database, the SaaS version of the SQL database, the SQL software as a service version of the database, and the NoSQL database, our Cosmos DB, the same database that ChatGPT is running on, or Adobe Experiences are running on, Walmart e-commerce website is running on, is also available as a SaaS database in Fabric. And what does it mean to have a SaaS database in Fabric? It really means that you have a database that is, it's so easy to just provision. It's just a couple of seconds, say, I want a new database, you just get it, no question asked. It's self-managing, self-securing, self-resilient. It just runs itself. You don't have to think about it. Scales up, scales down. You don't have to think about it. If you don't use it, you forget about it, it doesn't cost you anything. It's really, really cool. And what you can do is all sort of very, very exciting types of applications, ranging from standard transactional applications to applications that are around AI, and applications that really combines the power of Power BI with the ability to change the data in the operational database from your own report. This is what we call the translytical workflows inside Fabric. Now, I'm not going to go over that. There is a whole session about the database and databases in Fabric. But when you build the databases in Fabric and you build applications that are more kind of the regular line of business application, you typically have the application side, where it's typically a web or maybe mobile application. You have the database, and in the middle, you need to put some business logic, and this is where the Fabric data functions come in. And the Fabric data functions allow you to really build your own business logic into Fabric. It's super, super easy. Choose your language. You like C#, write it in C#. You like Python, write it in Python. You just build it in the browser. You don't have to be a professional developer. If you were able in the old days to write macros in Excel, you are ready to go and build those data functions in Fabric. And what we've been doing is we said not only the data functions can be called from outside Fabric by your the front end of the application, but we want to make sure that you can really use them for many different ways inside Fabric. So if you have reusable logic that you want to have across many notebooks, then you can use a function, call them from the notebook. We've been able to do that before, but we are adding more integration points. And to talk more about that, I'm going to invite Aaron to the stage. Aaron, so we are integrating more of those user data functions.
Absolutely. We're bringing user data functions across Fabric. So you might have seen those translytical demos where you're calling back to a database from Power BI. I'm going to show you something else. Should we take a look?
Yes.
We're going to start in the world of real time. So imagine we have package deliveries come in. We need to track them. We need to respond to them. If you've used Activator before in Fabric, you might be familiar with these alerts, right? We can set up a rule. And typically what we do is kick off, an email and Outlook, a Teams notification. But with user data functions in Activator in real-time intelligence, we have the ability to kick off custom logic when we filter down to a medicine order that's coming in. So every time one of those packages has a specific label, we can actually kick off custom logic elsewhere in Fabric. It's really easy to set up, just a few clicks.
And then when I want to call the function, I need to bind it to parameters.
Absolutely. So all of this is configured right through the UX. Your function has some arguments, it has some parameters, and we can just hook those up with a few clicks, and it's very simple once that's set up.
And when the function starts running, so the conditions are activated, then we actually want to know where the function was called.
Yep. So in this case, let's say we hit off a test request, right? We just want to make sure this is working. That's actually going to show up in the monitoring hub for this function. So along with platform-wide, Spark jobs and the like, we see that this function has been called, and we can click into that invocation ID and go to the function item to start, playing around and continuing to develop. All of those invocations are there, so we see when the function has been called, and now we can continue to work.
And this is where we build the functions. Of course, we want to have a proper development process. We want to have a dev, test, production environment.
Right.
And we want to make sure that the function is parameterized correctly.
Right. So in this case, what we're doing is when we get those alerts for medicine deliveries, we want to write back to a Cosmos database. We love databases in Fabric. But we might want to parameterize that, right? So we might want to start with some sort of test container and then later on switch it to a more friendly environment for staging and then production. And we can do that now with variable library support for Fabric data functions. It's all built in.
So you just configure that, and then you can have one Cosmos DB container for test, for dev, for production. And then I have the function, and I want to use it in other places, right? One of the things that people want to use is to have this function become tools for AI.
Right. So once we've kind of set this up in the development environment, brought it to production maybe, we might want to use it across Fabric and agents.
And you can see here, we put the description of the function, right?
Yes, absolutely. So the description is here. In this case, we have a custom function to calculate redemption rewards for packages that are running late. I'm going to go over to my data agent. You might be familiar with this experience. It's been around in Fabric. We're continuing to iterate on it. And we'll start with a simple query, just about packages that are running late. But here's the really cool part. I have that custom logic, and now I can actually hook up my agent to it to start bringing in the functions that we've written. And the cool thing here is I don't need to do too much guidance, right? So I hooked up that function as part of the tools. I don't need to say, go be aware of this function or go call this function, right? It's aware of it, the argument is there, the description is there, and the agent will start to integrate that. So we check that off, and then when we go back to that chat interface and we ask our agent about deliveries that are running late, we'll see the response, and we'll see that it automatically picks up the intelligence related to that function. So here our response is going to note some packages that are running late, and it's going to ask, do we want to go ahead with refund?
And that's really cool because now the agent doesn't just have the ability to analyze, we can actually take action using those functions.
Right, so next I might say, okay, great, get me some refund estimates formulaically, based on the custom logic that I've written, and it'll go ahead and do that. So it's that mix of agentic intelligence with custom logic that we've written. You can use that custom logic across Fabric, and it's a great foundation for AI.
Yeah, so data functions in Fabric just integrated everywhere, including the variable libraries, the agents, and with Data Activator. And you'll see more and more of those integration points of the functions with Fabric. Now, let's move a little bit to a different box here that we have in the workload. We're going to talk about analytics, right? And I don't know how many of you have tried both the Spark data engineering, data science capability, and the data warehousing. What's really cool about them, except for that they're really easy to use, is that how cost effective they are. If you've been using Synapse in Azure before, you might want to compare the Spark capability we have in Synapse in Azure versus the Spark capability we have in Fabric. And this is just amazing cost savings you can have here. It's almost 4 times cheaper to work with Fabric Spark compared to the Synapse Spark that we had in Azure. And if you work with HD Insight, another Azure service that we have, it's almost even better, right? So it's quite incredible. And this is true not only for the Spark capability, it's also true for our data warehouse capability. You have the Synapse Data Warehouse, a pretty popular offering that we have in Azure, but the whole new generation that we introduced in Fabric is so much more cost effective. You look at the runtime improvement, yes, it's good. Yes, you should clap, it's good. Thanks, Mom. It's almost twice as fast to run the same benchmarks on the Fabric, and it costs you so much less to run the same content. And a lot of people have been asking, so what do I have to do in order to move from the Synapse Data Warehouse into the Fabric Data Warehouse? And this is where the Fabric Data Warehouse really excels. First of all, it's a different technology. It's a brand new MPP engine that is highly optimized for the largest volumes of data, but also be very, very hands-off, SaaS experience. You don't have to think about how do I scale, how do I optimize. It's designed around no code, a lot of Copilot advantages. But when we introduced it, because it was new, people say, well, you need a few more features. Or you have some features that are really blocking us from moving the Synapse Data Warehouse to the Fabric Data Warehouse. So we're really excited to have a lot of those blocks, maybe all of them now, resolved. And we can go, there's a bunch of things here. They look kind of mundane, but they are really the things that were stopping people from moving before. For example, identity columns. Right? These are the things that allow you to have automatic keys for every row. Or the data clustering that allows you to really manage and make sure that you create clusters that are highly optimized for reduced file scanning and the queries run faster. Or, of course, large strings and binary data. That's, so many data warehouses have this kind of data, and we just didn't have it, but now we do. And warehouse snapshot that allows you to actually change the data across the entire data warehouse without the users who are consuming the data warehouse feeling anything because they're working with an older snapshot of the data. So all of that is showing, coming to the data warehouse. All these upgrades are generally available now.
Yeah, and the migration assistant is also generally available, so we are ready for you in Fabric Data Warehouse.
So everybody who is on Synapse, start moving to Fabric.
But Amir, data it's not just about tables, right? There's more to it. So
yeah, the data warehouse is really about tables, but some things are not about tables.
Yeah, we like to say that data lives in tables, but when you want to talk about knowledge and relationships, we have to talk about graphs, right? And we're going to talk about graphs a lot in this presentation when we get to Fabric IQ and knowledge, but I just want to start off by showing you the power of building graph models in Fabric. So
this is kind of new. If you haven't been keeping close tab, we introduced the graph just a couple of months ago, and it's actually, the graphs really give you a really very, very flexible framework to associate entities one with the other with very complex relationship. And we actually took the team that built the LinkedIn graph in LinkedIn. You can imagine how large it is with billion users on top of that. We took the team, we took the technology, we built it into Fabric, so it's unbelievable scale, and we made it super, super easy to use.
Yeah, so we have all of that power, but we also have no-code simplicity, Copilot built in for GQL if you need a hand, as I do, and we can take a look and show you a little bit more. So we're going to build a graph model in 3 or 4 minutes, so let's see how we do. And in this case, imagine that I'm a data engineer in a retail scenario. So what I want to do is map a social network and then bring in some products data to understand how to run a marketing campaign.
Yep, let's take a look.
Okay, so here we are in a Fabric workspace. Again, we're dealing with a retail campaign, and we want to understand how things work, how people connect, and how those networks with social influencers can be useful to our marketing. So we can go and create a graph model. And a graph in Fabric is an item like anything else, right? API support, easy to create in a few clicks. I can name it. And then here we are in a canvas where we can start to build that out. I'm going to connect to data in OneLake. I can also connect to my real-time streams to bring in data, and I'm starting with social networks, right? So I want to understand how people are posting, what tags are associated with those posts, who's liking what, so that I can cross-reference that later with my sales data, my products catalog. So here, I'm going to start by adding some nodes that correspond to that social data, right? And graphs have nodes, they have edges. The idea is that they're kind of entities that connect and have relationships that go different directions. So you might have a person, you might have a post, the people create the posts, and you have tags too, right? The posts have the tags. So we're going to go ahead and connect those in a little bit. But we see here that in the interface, it's really easy to just add those, right? I'm doing it in a few clicks. They're coming up as these nice, attractive dots. And now I can go and bring in additional data from a different source to keep building out that model.
And the beautiful thing about it is all working on top of OneLake. So there's no ingestion into the graph. It just works on top of the tables we already have in OneLake.
Absolutely. So we're bringing in data from different sources. Again, we started with the social network, then we brought in a product catalog, because ultimately what we really care about with the web of likes and stuff online is how it relates to our products and our marketing. So now we have those nodes and we need to connect them. And again, we can do this with just a few clicks. So I'm creating joins, right? The person has a relationship to the person entity because people know people, so that's the first. And graphs are really good at this.
And so we call those edges, and we can connect them. And once you connect those edges, then you will be able to start running queries on top of all of that.
Absolutely. So let's just finish out those edges, right? The person connects to the person, so that's pretty simple. And then people create posts. And then posts have tags, and then of course some of those tags are associated with our products, which is what we really care about. So I think we've built this, right? We could keep going, but let's go into the analyst view and see how we could query this to actually start getting insights related to our marketing campaign.
Now, there's a whole query language, GQL, but you don't have to know the query language to use it.
No, you don't need to know it. So in this case, right, we have a visual query. So we took that model that we built, and we're starting to actually peel it out, right? These nodes kind of explode into different edges, and we can set up what we want to query in GQL just by clicking around in the interface. So now we've set that up, and we want to actually give filters, right, for each of those entities. So I'm going to put in a name for a guy named Pedro Silva. This guy is posting all over the place. He's a really good influencer. We just want to see who he's connecting to, and then more importantly, right, whose posts he's interacting with have the Zava tag for our retail scenario. That's the name of our company. So we're going to go ahead and do that, and we created a query, and we've run it, right? It corresponds to GQL. Here's our graph, and this is a simple one, but we'll get more complex from here.
So this is very simple, but the beauty of graph is that you can start following those relationships much deeper and understand the relationship between people and how they relate to other people and how they relate to other products and so forth.
Absolutely. So that's what we're going to do, and that's a more complex query. So I'm going to bring in Copilot here, right, and I'm asking basically for the third degree network of connections for this guy, Pedro. I'm going to just describe it, and GQL is going to be produced. And so we go from that simple graph that's looking at his posts that have the specific tags to his entire network, and this is crazy, right?
Yeah.
If you go 6 degrees of connection, I think you get everyone in the world. So 3 is it's a fairly large group of influencers.
Yeah, so we need to be able to filter all of that because frankly, I don't understand what's going on.
Yeah, it's cool to look at. It shows the power graph, but I don't really care, who he's talking to and liking with. What I really care about, right, is the view of his network through our product. So I can start to write more complex queries. They look at questions like who's posting what, who's interacting with whose posts, which posts have which tags on them, and ultimately what I'm doing through this more complex query, which would otherwise, require a lot of self-joins, is getting a view of that graph that shows, which posts are interacted with and liked with that also have our tags for Zava, because that's what we want to mine for our marketing campaign. So we have that graph view. This is, again, more directed from that network.
But if I just want to know the list of products that we have in here, so we don't...
Oh, absolutely. I got you covered, Amir. So you can go right over to this other record-based view too. So those graphs correspond to a view that's a little bit friendly if you want to look at specific entries. And that's just the beginning. There's a lot we can do with graphs.
So it's great for anything that has to do with social networks, of course. It came from LinkedIn. It's obviously there. But it's much more than that. Anything that has complex relationship. Imagine security scenarios. You have devices that people log in, a lot of people, lots of action, a lot of activity, a lot of signals. And this is why we're actually very excited to announce that Microsoft Sentinel, our security product that actually allows you to identify all the threats, is now going to be powered by Microsoft, by the Fabric graph that we have in the product.
Yeah, and I love this quote, right? Attackers think in graphs, so we have to think like them.
Yes, it's you have to really counter the attackers, and that's really great. Okay, so we have all the platform here. We touched about the databases, the analytics. We're going to see a bit more of that in a moment. But everything we do here is powered by the capacity. You buy one product, you buy the capacity, and everything is only in one system. It's powered. You don't have to decide how much you allocate. But people that have been using and managing capacity said, hey, it's great, one thing to buy, but we really need more tools to know how to manage the capacity. So this is where we are really excited to have a bunch of new features that has to do with capacity management for the platform. And the first one is capacity events.
And right, this is beautiful because it represents the the intersection of real-time intelligence in Fabric, which is a huge, fast-growing, workload for us, with the capacity events that you might need to track as an administrator. So basically what we can do is we can take event streams, Event House, Activator, and use that on top of our own, capacity management. So should we take a look?
No, we'll skip that demo.
Okay. There is a demo.
There is a
all day,
demo.
folks.
Unfortunately, we are
later.
kind of like start looking at the clock and say, hey, we have to move forward a little bit faster.
Absolutely.
So we'll skip it, but it will be in the deck and you can run the demo on your own
Okay, shake
of
it off.
capacity events. But the other thing that we have is people who, if you want to have all this ability to track the events and manage it yourself, you can do that. We also give you a bunch of other capabilities that are really allowing you to make sure that you are, you're protected. So the first one, if you run out of capacity, we have the ability to say, instead of you being throttled, and you now say, hey, my system doesn't work because I consumed all my capacity, you can say, I'm trading it off. I'm willing to pay for the extra I'm consuming, and just don't throttle me. So I know that anybody who's managing capacity is really dreading the moment of throttling. You can just avoid it forever by turning on capacity overage billing. Okay, that's really big. Now, if you want to even avoid the capacity overage billing, then we have the workspace level surge protection. This allows you to actually, before you even get to the overage situation, to make sure that if you have workspaces that are misbehaving, that are consuming way more than what you assume they will consume, you can just putting limits on the workspaces, and those workspaces will be deprived of the resources, so you can reserve those for the mission critical applications, so you're never running out of capacity. Okay, I think we covered that part, right? And so let's talk a little bit about the second pillar, okay? Open and AI-ready data lake. And this is really the world of OneLake. And OneLake, if you didn't hear about OneLake, you've been living under a rock for the last 2 years. This is really the data lake. This is what we like to call the OneDrive for data. You cannot imagine today Office 365 without OneDrive. You should not be able to imagine the world of data without OneLake. Every piece of data we have in Fabric is being stored in OneLake. Everything is stored in open format. It's one format that is shared across all the workloads. There's no need to move data, export, import across all the workloads. Lineage is computed. The sensitivity labels are calculated. It's pretty amazing. Now, what people ask is, how do I get my data that I already have into OneLake? And this is where the world of the data factory comes into play. And we have 170 connector that can allow you to bring the data from virtually everywhere into OneLake, any application you can imagine. And I'd like to bring Shireen here to the stage to talk more about some of the innovations we have around the data factory. Hey, Shireen.
Hello. So yeah, we've seen transformations being super fast and secure, right? But what if I want to transfer my data by just describing what I want in plain English? And that's exactly where AI transforms and data flows comes into the picture. So we're super excited to announce this is available as of right now. It gives you out-of-the-box connectivity to those AI functions within Fabric AI, and you can use natural language to describe your intent for what you want to do. And once again, no coding required, so I can apply those transformations without writing a single line of M or SQL.
So natural language around, just provide a context for the prompting for the AI, and that's it. So you want to show us how it looks like?
Yeah, let's do this through a demo. So let's get started. So I have some airline review data in my lakehouse. And I can see in my data flows Gen 2 that this data has already been loaded in. And before I put any prompting, anything like that, I want to use the power of data flows to do some transformations and filters. So in this case, what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to my date column and look at just the data in the past 1 year. And once again, we're all familiar with this. We know the filtering, we know the transformations. Everything is very similar to what we have seen before. And now, where does AI come in? So underneath the add column ribbon, I'm going to see this new dialog box called AI prompts. So immediately I'm going to see this new dialog box. I'm going to create a new column called sentiment. Basically what I want to do is I'm going to look at the reviews and see what is the sentiment. Is it positive? Is it neutral? Is it negative? Right? And all I have to do is just write a prompt for AI. I'll select the specific column I want to use for context. And in this case, I'm going to use the content column. And Amir, that's basically it. So within a few seconds, within a few minutes, I'm going to see a new column right there called sentiment. It has gone through every single row in my content review page, and it's also let us know if it's a positive, negative, negative, neutral.
And it's not just sentiment. You can do other things with AI.
Yeah, that's just one example. Let's do another example. So I've seen that I'm not, happy with the churn rate among my airline reviewers, and I want to do a personalized message for each of my person who is doing this airline to see if we can offer a promotion or a discount code, for example. So I'm just going to enter my prompt. I'm going to provide it with a couple of columns that I want it to act against, and once again, that's it. Within a few seconds, I'm going to skip ahead because I don't want to load that. I'm going to see this new message specific to that language in that content column, right? So I'm going to see this message in German. I'm offering a discount code. I'm going to see a message in English as well, and another one in Russian too. So that's how simple
The
it
AI
is.
just figure out what is the
AI just figures
language,
it
what
out.
is the right response. Pretty incredible.
Yeah.
Now, this is one way to do transformation, and this is where actually maybe the most popular tool in the world is Power Query and data flows, because
Yeah.
everybody in Excel, we have tens of millions of users
Millions of
using
customers,
it. But if
exactly.
you are a data professional, there's another tool that you're using in order to manage your data, especially in the relational databases, and that is dbt.
Yep, dbt. So this is becoming the global standard for SQL transformations, right? So in this case, you can model, you can test, you can document this entire process through a pipeline. So what we do is bring the raw data in, we do some rigorous development, rigorous testing, and then we also deploy those data sets available for BI-ready workloads, ML-ready workloads, and operational analytics.
And we have a giant announcement today, right?
Exactly,
We are
we
bringing
do.
data transformation. DBT jobs are now native part of Fabric. So
They're
if you like
native.
DBT, you have it built into Fabric. No CLI, no need to deploy anything. It's just built into beautiful editor that we have here, and you're going to show us the editor, right?
Yeah, let's show us the experience. Let's look at the demo. So directly in my Fabric homepage, right, I'm going to click on that dbt job, which is an artifact now in Fabric, give it a name, and what I can do is I can either export an existing dbt job project, or I can create a new one with a sample. So I'm going to do the Jaffle shop, which hopefully some of you guys are familiar with. I'm going to select a profile, and then what I'm going to do is also select a warehouse. So I'm going to land that staging, that seeding data directly into that specific warehouse. Then I'm going to provide it a profile, and in this page, I'm going to do a C data checkmark. This basically ensures that any of those static data files that are coming in as CSVs or as tables into my data warehouse, I can use that for staging specifically. So look at that. That project imported super quickly, right? It was that fast. Once again, no infrastructure, no CLI required. It makes it super easy for you guys to onboard quickly. So what you are seeing here is that you're seeing those CSV files landing as raw data directly into the warehouse, right? And I wanted to mention one other thing. Those permissions, those identities, such as like the Entra ID, the workspace variables, the SQL OLS, RLS, CLS are already inbuilt in. So whenever you access that data, it's already available. So in this case, I'm going to do a dbt build, right? So this just means that I can model, I can test, I can run all those dbt projects directly in one instance. So after I build, within a few seconds, you're going to see that succeed, right? You'll see exactly what has been done. And if I go to my compiled SQL tab, I'll see exactly what is being pushed into my warehouse. And in the lineage view, I can see all that raw data, the seeding data, the modeling data, everything has been checkmarked as complete.
Beautiful, beautiful editor for
Beautiful
DBT,
UI.
and it's all now being shown inside the data warehouse. Now the data warehouse is
Yeah,
completely maintained.
everything is right there. So you can actually build, you can test, you can model everything within Fabric, right? And since it's part of Fabric, we can do operations as well, such as scheduling runs every nightly, every monthly, whatever you want to do. And along with that, we have the beautiful monitoring workspace as well. So any of my seed jobs, any of my monitor jobs, all of that can be done through the entire pane.
And we're not done yet, because we actually have an ongoing partnership we announced today with DBT Labs. And in fact, what you saw here is what is known as DBT Core, which is the basic version of DBT.
Exactly.
But coming to Fabric soon will be DBT Fusion.
Yeah.
Right? So the complete version of DBT is coming in.
Exciting. We don't
Yeah.
want to limit you to just the native, the core DBT, so we want to make sure you can do other things such as DBT Fusion within DBT.
Thank you so much, Yuri.
Thanks, Amir. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, so the other thing that people love about OneLake is not that you can do a lot of data transformation in all sorts of ways, but the fact that you can actually bring all the data from around the world, cross clouds, cross databases, cross files and structured data, everything into OneLake with zero ATO. And this is through the features of shortcuts and the feature of mirroring. And no ETL, you just get everything in one place. And we are incredibly excited to announce that we now have another source we can work with. Is this SAP BDC Connect. Means zero ETL. We can now connect to all the data you have in SAP BDC, and it's coming to Fabric. This is maybe the #1 source people have been asking us about, and just built into Fabric. It's coming soon. This announcement was today between us and SAP. And in addition, of course, many other sources. People just want more and more and more sources to come in. So we have 5 sources that are now generally available today. We announced them. In addition, we just recently announced the availability of the private view of Google BigQuery, of Oracle. We talked about the SAP DataSphere, and maybe the thing that is most exciting for me is the ability to create shortcuts into SharePoint and OneDrive, which really means you can have now one data estate combined with your structured data and all your document estate in one place without any copying. So you don't have to copy the documents in, you just point to them in SharePoint and become part of OneLake, which is just incredible. To show us more about how we can go and really bring Oracle, BigQuery, and SharePoint together. Here's Aaron, and okay, Aaron, let's go.
Okay, so we're trying to unify a data estate, as Amir said. We have some data and it's living in Google BigQuery, right? But let's not forget about the on-prem data in Oracle. That's also, coming up. So we're gonna look at that, and we need that in the same place. And then now, right, we also have SharePoint data. So we have unstructured text as well. So that's the third kind of category I'm looking at here, all of these customer support emails. And I want to look at them in one place and model them in one place. And Fabric provides that. So I have this task flow view that shows the different mirrored sources and shortcut sources. And here I can actually peek into one of them. So this is for Google BigQuery. We're mirroring it, and it's live. So we see those tables, they're up and running, and that means that I can take that data here in a lakehouse, model it, go to a SQL Analytics endpoint, and I can start writing these queries that go across clouds, right? So there's Google BigQuery data, there's Oracle data, we're gonna have some of that SharePoint data come in, and we can write these complex queries.
Well, the SharePoint is not so easy because it's text files, unstructured data.
You're right, it's a little more complex, but Fabric and OneLake have you covered, right? So we look at this unstructured text data, so there's some customer emails. This guy seems, uncharacteristically happy after a support call, but we wanna do some sentiment analysis, right? We don't wanna read all of those. I'm sure some people are gonna be a little bit more frustrated. So we can actually shortcut to this data and add, a new layer of transformation that doesn't require any custom ETL or notebooks. So these are shortcut transforms that have AI built in. So on top of that data that we're shortcutting to, we can add these transformations that do things like sentiment detection, translation, and more.
So those files in SharePoint become tables in Fabric without any ETL.
Right. I didn't have to write a notebook. I didn't need to set up a job. Of course, you can do all of that, but here it just flows through, and we have those sentiment labels tabularly, and they're able for us to now, join with the other data across clouds as well. So we get that power of cross clouds queries all unified in one estate thanks to OneLake.
But it's more than that, right? Because not only that you can bring all the data into Fabric, we want to make sure that you can use all the data you have in OneLake everywhere. And this is really where we start layering on top of OneLake all the destination that the data can be used. So first of all, we have our own Microsoft product. If you want the data in Power BI, you can get it from OneLake. Data in Excel, you can get it in OneLake, just built into Excel. Data in Microsoft Foundry, it's built into Foundry, the ability to access the data in OneLake, into Copilot Studio, everywhere you have it. But it's more than that. We want to make sure that you can really use it across the board. So we made sure that we have open APIs, open format across the board, and you can actually access all the data from any data platform you might want to have. It could be used from Dremio, from Eon. You can have it from Polars. You can have it from Pandas that you have in Python, anywhere you want. And we're actually super excited about 3 announcements we have for not just for ingesting data, getting the data into OneLake, but actually using the data that is in OneLake by these other products. So first of all, we talked about SAP. Not only that we can get the data from SAP with zero copy, that SAP BDC gets the data from OneLake with zero copy. Databricks, we already were able to get the data from Databricks tables and into OneLake, but now Databricks can start reading the data from OneLake, something that a lot of you have been asking for. And lastly, Snowflake, amazing partnership we have with them. Not only that they they write the data into OneLake, but they can actually read the data from OneLake. So want to see how you can consume the data from
Yeah, so
Snowflake?
let's pick this back up, right, with the same demo. So imagine we brought this data into OneLake, we've modeled it, we have those cross-cloud queries. I'm going to pick up on the other side. So this is the Fabric view. Let's switch to Snowflake, right? And because atop Fabric, we have this, Iceberg compliant REST catalog, basically. What we can do is have the same schema, same data available. We'll see it looks exactly the same, so let's zoom in and see they match, right? We're in Snowflake, but all of that OneLake data we can access, and we can start to run the same queries, and that data will flow through. So the beauty of the shortcut transforms, all of those text files that we brought in, connected to virtually from SharePoint, added those, transformations to, we can see that in, the Iceberg compliant Snowflake view as well. And as we add in more of those text files, right, with customer reviews based on their service calls, that's actually going to flow through as well. So things we're shortcutting to in OneLake are also going to be here in Snowflake, and I'll show you, right? If we run this query again after putting more of those files in, we'll see that the number of records changes and grows because everything that is in OneLake is now flowing through, so we can see it in Snowflake, and that's the power.
Yeah, so you can use it everywhere. You saw Snowflake, you'll be able to use it in Databricks, you'll be able to use BCC, and so many other of these other platforms. So, okay, we wanted to use it everywhere, but not too much. Too much might be insecure. And this is where we have the outbound access protection.
Right, so you're familiar with OAP, right? If you have a good network security posture, we're happy to announce that we're expanding coverage across different experiences, primarily data integration that, Shireen talked to you about. So you have the ability, right, to control your estate more in cases where you need tighter regulation. So there's more and more coming to OAP. We never forget about security here.
And then if you want to govern everything in OneLake, when we have the OneLake catalog, if you don't know, OneLake catalog is actually the most used data catalog in the world because you use it from Excel. We have tens of millions of users that are using the OneLake catalog. 230,000 organizations are using it, integrated in 100 different products of Microsoft and others as well. Super, super excited about it. And we are now announcing Copilot support for the OneLake catalog. So you can actually govern and secure data using with the help of the Copilot.
Yeah, and we also have the Govern tab, right, to help you manage, tenant-wide admin experiences. So that is coming too. Lots in OneLake catalog.
Lastly, last pillar, and we don't have a lot of time for that one, but it is the AI-enabled business user. This is how we actually make sure that all the data that you have in Fabric, in OneLake, you can actually take advantage. This is the world of Power BI. 400,000 organizations, 35 million users, 95% of Fortune 500 are using Power BI. All of you are using Power BI, and under every report, every dashboard that you have in Power BI, there is a semantic model. And you have 20 million of those. And semantic models map the data into business concept. It has the concept of entities and the relationship between them and the metrics, and all the users are using it. And what we found is what was really good for Power BI is really essential for AI. AI really, really need this mapping between what the data means and what the business intends. And this is why we introduce the Fabric IQ. And Fabric IQ is taking the concept of semantic models from the world of reporting and analytics and into the world of operations. It really introduces the concept of digital twins and the ability to deal with real-time feeds and the ability to deal with standard operating procedures and with rules and with exceptions and really try to give you the ability to define, to model your entire business and business processes into the world of data so the AI can really reason around those. So let's take a look at what does it mean to have Fabric IQ,
yeah.
And I think we have a demo, and that will be the last demo for us, right?
Yeah, I think so. And the good news is there's a lot more coming this week, so be sure to come back, I think, to room 3008 tomorrow to see Tessa and Yitzhak and their team present more experiences, but I'll show you a little bit about IQ now. So imagine, right, you have a semantic model. You're familiar with this view if you do BI reporting. There's a lot here. It maps those business relationships for, again, this airline scenario, right, where we have flights, we have, airlines, we have crews and so forth. Let's take a look at how we can upgrade that, right, into what we call an ontology model, right? So this is useful. It's really useful for BI, but there are aspects of our business, right, that this does not capture. So we're talking about geospatial data, real-time feeds, rules, alerts. We can go ahead and upgrade that semantic model for BI into an ontology model with Fabric IQ, and then we get a view of our business that is a lot more, interactive and semantic and really true to the relationships between things. So we see this web that captures not just, right, data keys, but business relationships. What's the relationship between a flight and a runway, between a crew and a flight, and so forth, right? And in some cases, there may not be them, but this is what you have the ability to map out. And on top of this ontology, right, you have the ability to look at specific entities, right? So if we have this default view that's being inferred from our semantic model, right, we have the relationship between flights and other elements, we can also start to enrich these entities. So for instance, we're not looking at just historical data in OneLake, say. We might want to add real-time feeds, events corresponding to the runway for conditions.
Yeah, maybe wind speed.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So we want rules too. There's a lot more than just data here. So once we go ahead and start adding sources to this, we can bring in weather data, IoT data, telemetry, you name it, and then associated with these entities, we can start to have things like rules that will alert our crew, right? If the wind speed exceeds a certain threshold that we set. And all of this data, right, is captured in these entities that are related to the model, and that's a great foundation for AI, right? You don't want to go and just train an operations agent or a data agent that doesn't have a real understanding of the business. So we're enriching this model to set ourselves up well for that agentic intelligence.
So we have the rules, we have the real-time feeds, we have the documents that you can associate, we can have the reports that are part of the, that are really describing everything that is going on with our airport.
Yeah, we didn't forget about BI, right? So we still have the reports, but here you see if we go back into this enriched view for the ontology, once we've started adding in data and alerts, we have everything, right? We also have the graph with relationships, and we have the spatial data, and we have the reports, we have the real-time data. We can go into the enriched views for the flights. We can take a look at everything that's basically been inferred from our semantic model, and then the data and the context that we've added. And here we have the runway view too, which now starts to pick up conditions and real-time feeds that are going to correspond to what our agents need to alert our crew members about.
So this is kind of incredible. We actually created a full description of our business, of operations, of the real-time feeds, of the standard operating procedure, of the rules, and now all this can be fed into the AI agents. And you'll find in Fabric a whole array of different kind of AI agents. You have the one that all of you will be using soon, which is the Power BI chat with your data. It means that you don't have to build anything. It's just built into Power BI, into Fabric. And if you have reports and you have semantic models, you can start typing questions. It will just pull the data out of your report instead of you going and browsing the dashboard and the report on your own. But then you can build custom agents. So you have the Fabric data agent that allows you to build your own custom data analyst about domain specific. And lastly, you have the Fabric operations agents that allows you to go and have on top of the ontology, the real-time feeds, constantly monitor, constantly act, kind of your virtual team members at the back end that make sure that the operations are always running smoothly.
And we want to keep you wanting a little bit more. So be sure to come back tomorrow, again, Wednesday, for that Fabric IQ session. I think on Thursday, there's also a data agent session as well. So there's a lot to come this week. There's a lot to see following the keynote today and our presentation.
So thank you very much.